welcome. This is another episode of the WCEG Network show. I am so excited to be back for our November session. So, greetings, everyone. Welcome the WCEG Network on the WCEG Talk radio show. We are the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. I'm Dr. Babs. I'm a physician and the founder of Living at Your Finest Wellness. And I'm here as your show host for the evening segment of the Holistic Perspective. So we are here to enrich you with information that not only gets you inspired, but gets you making those impactful changes that would just help your holistic approach to life. So November is what we call the National Diabetes Awareness Month. I'm sure you've heard that time and time again. And as the month ends, I think it'll be important for us to have this conversation. So tonight, I'm going to address a few key points. We're going to talk about the statistics, right? And what are those risk factors? We're going to touch up on how we can prevent it, how we can treat, not just manage, but also how we can reverse, because it is possible to reverse diabetes. And then I'm going to end with commonly asked questions. All right. Now, I want you to tag your friends. I want you to tag your neighbors. Sharing is caring. Let them know that we are on, and we're on all social media platforms. Just name it: LinkedIn, YouTube. We're on Instagram, Facebook, the radio network, and we also have the new platforms, the app. So please, please, please tag and follow, because we do not want you to miss out on any of this helpful information. We want to make a meaningful impact. Now, before I get started, two quick announcements. The first one is that the information that is shared on this talk radio is not intended as medical advice. It's just information to help, educational information to help you with your wellness journey. And then the second disclaimer is that the views and opinions expressed by the host and guest host, it's not necessarily views of the WCEG network, right? It's just information, again, to help to promote your health and wellness goals. So let's get started. Let's talk about diabetes. I always love to start with just an inspirational quote. And the one that I read, it's an anonymous writer. I don't know who wrote it, but this is exactly what it says. It says that living with diabetes is not a death sentence. It is just a life sentence to live happier and healthier. So maybe you have had a diagnosis, or you know somebody with a diagnosis. I want you to share this episode with them, because it is not a death sentence. It's just an opportunity. They say when we know better, we do better. So why is it important? Let's get started with the stats, right? I always like to talk about the background. So I don't know if you are aware that 37 million US adults have diabetes, and one in five of them don't even know. That's just how rampant it is. And another category of people, that's 8.5 billion people, as much as they don't know, you have 96 million that have prediabetes. And I'm going to share what those numbers look like, because I'm showing numbers here. You need to know what will qualify for prediabetes and what qualifies for diabetes. Another thing to know in terms of stats is that diabetes is the 8th leading cause of death in the United States, and it's the number one cause of kidney failure. So that's why, unfortunately, there's so many dialysis centers all over the place. Everywhere there's a dialysis center, and that's because of just how rampant diabetes is, and it's the number one cause of kidney failure. And as much as I've said, it's the 8th leading cause of death, it's the 7th leading cause that is unreported. So it's really rampant. And when we talk about diabetes, there are different types of diabetes. You've probably heard of type 1. Type 1 is one that tends to occur in younger children, younger age group. That's just what's going on with the pancreas. Just don't have enough insulin. So the pancreas is an organ that houses insulin, and insulin is a hormone. So whenever we eat, the insulin is supposed to awake and come alive to get rid of the sugar, right? To transport the sugar, a better word to use, into the organs that needs it, into the cells. But when you don't have insulin, then you don't have the transportation mode. So that is type 1. No insulin, lots of sugar, and that tends to be diagnosed much earlier. Type 2 that is about 90 to 95% of the cases, is where you have that same insulin. It's just resistant. It's just not doing what it's supposed to do. It's because it's been overburdened. It's just tired. It's just tired of all the demands upon it. And yes, it has a genetic composition, but what I want to share today is that that is a small component of it. A lot of it has to do with lifestyle and environment. So type 1 is 5 to 10% of the population, while type 2, which is the insulin resistant, is 90 to 95%. And over the last 20 years, unfortunately, the number has kind of doubled in terms of the people that are diagnosed with diabetes or even prediabetes. And so, what are those risk factors? I can assure you that the number one culprit for diabetes is the standard American diet, which we call the SAD diet. And the second common reason is sedentary lifestyle. A lot of us sit down for hours and we don't get up, and the muscle itself is a metabolic organ. And so when we sit for so long and we don't get up, then everything is stagnant. It doesn't require glucose. It doesn't require energy. So you have all that sugar playing around in the bloodstream, and there's no use of it, and it stores as fat. So imagine if we stand up and we move around, then the muscle, because it's a metabolic organ, it's needing energy to move. So it's using that glucose. So the two main things is definitely what we put in our mouths, the standard American diet, and the sedentary lifestyle where we're just sitting and sitting. So having said that, those are risk factors. Of course, genetics also is a risk factor. The reason why I'm bringing this conversation alive, and the American Diabetes Association is bringing this conversation alive in this month, when we should continue it even after November, is because diabetes is devastating. It has a lot of complications with all the sugar that walks around in the bloodstream. It can cause damage to the eyes. Anywhere there's blood vessels, anywhere there's blood flowing, which is pretty much everywhere in the body, it can cause damage if it's not under control. So just imagine the eyes from the head to the toe, right? The eyes, the nerves, the kidney, the brain. And the important thing is that it's really very simple to reverse. So I say simple, I don't say it's easy, but it's simple, right? But we can reverse it. And how do I know we can reverse it? There are tons of research that has just proven that it's reversible. And I want to speak about a particular study called the Diabetes Prevention Program, where they did patients that had prediabetes. And let me share what prediabetes numbers look like so you kind of get a sense. Let me just share a quick slide here. Okay, so I hope you can see this. Let me make it a little smaller. So what happened in this research? So they took a number of people that had prediabetes. So this is prediabetes. Prediabetes is a precursor to diabetes, right? Diabetes is when you have an A1C. And the question today is, what is your A1C? When was the last time you did your A1C? As the year is coming to an end, if you have not had an A1C today and you're hearing my voice, please get one. Just check. Do not guess, test. All right? Don't guess, test. And don't say, yes, I feel good. I don't have any problems. I don't have all the signs and symptoms of diabetes. I'm just going to keep living my life. That's okay, all well and good, but we all need to have at least a physical once a year. And when you do that as an adult, you need to have your sugar checked. So A1C 6.5 is considered diabetes with a fasting blood glucose greater than 126. Pre-diabetes, as you see in the yellow line, is just a precursor. So it's anywhere between 5.7 and 6.4. And the fasting glucose would be between 100 and 125. And normal, your fasting blood glucose should be less than 100. So that means your A1C is less than 5.7. So back to the study that I was sharing. So the study, what happened was that patients were broken into three categories, right? There was one group where they did lifestyle, just solely lifestyle. And what do I mean by lifestyle? They focused on the nutrition, nourishing foods, predominantly plant-based, not necessarily that they were vegans where they didn't eat any animal product, but they just introduced more veggies into their diets, right? So that was that group. So patients that had prediabetes, where there was a group where they just did lifestyle, no medication, just lifestyle. And there was another group that took metformin, right? So they did metformin, and that's one of the number one medications that we use to you know manage diabetes, let's put it that way, because it really helps the insulin resistance. It makes it sensitive, so it's responding to the assignment that is on hand, right? And what they found out as is that the group that even were on metformin didn't do as well as the group that was just on lifestyle or on no medications. So that's just to show you that lifestyle, when we focus on nutrition, physical activity, and we focus on sleep and stress management and other things like substance avoidance, all those things certainly play a big role. So 58% of them were able to reverse to normal. So no diabetes, no pre-diabetes anymore. And the group that was just on metformin and maybe did a little bit of lifestyle, they just had like a 38% reversal. So that's just to tell you that yes, medications has its place and it plays its role, but in the absence of lifestyle, it's not really going to be, it's not going to sustain you long enough to give you the results that you need. So it's important to know that they work together. You don't want to use just medication as a band-aid. So first thing, you certainly need to check your numbers and you know what they are. And then of course, be aware of what things you're doing that is leading to the diabetes, leading to the insulin resistance. So I mentioned the groups. So we have prediabetes, we have type 1, we have type 2. And what we found, studies have shown that if you do absolutely nothing in a pre-diabetes state, it's just a matter of time. Within a year, somewhere between a year and 2 years, the insulin is going to completely give out and it's not going to be doing much work, that your body solely is going to rely on medication. But the good news is that you can reverse that by creating the environment that your body can thrive in. You might have heard of another type of diabetes, which is called gestational diabetes, and that just occurs during pregnancy. Some people are able to reverse that after the baby, baby is born. They can be, normal if they go back to a healthy environment. But some people, unfortunately, can continue to proceed into full-blown diabetes. There are other smaller groups, but I'll save that more for a deeper class, a deeper session. And so you'll hear things like atypical diabetes, so not the usual diabetes changes that you see. And so what we find that the symptoms of diabetes, just in case you know of anyone, any family member, I think it'll be important for us to be aware of what those signs and symptoms are, because it starts all the way from the head, all the way to the toe. It affects pretty much every organ system. Eyes, it could be blurred vision, they could be thirst, you're just thirsty, you're drinking a lot, peeing a lot, numbness and tingling of the hands. There's a lot of issues with kidneys. The kidney is definitely can progress from mild kidney issues to severe kidney issues, where it's relying on dialysis. It can affect the heart. It can affect several aspects of the body. So certainly, as the year is coming to an end, I really do want to encourage you to please check. If you already are diagnosed, the question is, how can you prevent it from getting worse where you're needing multiple medications? So speak with your physician, speak with your healthcare provider. What can you do? What else can I do to improve my insulin sensitivity, right? Because the more resistant your insulin is, the more headache it's going to be, and then you're going to need more and more medications. So those are the symptoms, commonly seen symptoms that occur. In terms of the signs, you can have some people who have darkening of the skin, sometimes the neck, what you call acanthosis. It's just the neck is darkening. That just means insulin resistance. So there's several signs of symptoms. Some people might have like little plaques in the eyes, and that could be indicative of cholesterol issues. So there are 3 friends that I say you should not sit next to each other at the Thanksgiving dinner, and we've just finished Thanksgiving. It's high sugar, high cholesterol, and high blood pressure. Those three people, they can't sit down next to each other. So those three things, you definitely want to keep an eye on it. You want to put a pulse in it. You want to make sure it's within normal limits. So let's now move to the other segment of what I want to talk about today. We've talked about the statistics, right? We've talked about how rampant it is. Some people don't even know that they have it. And I talked about the different types, right? And I've also shared some of the symptoms that can occur, what to look out for, and the kind of questions that you need to ask your doctor. Sometimes they will tell you they've done it, but you want to know what your numbers are. Just because they've done it and they say it's normal, it'll be good to know what exactly are my numbers. And I'll make sure that I leave that slide in the on Facebook so that you can refer back to it as to what is considered a normal number. All right, so let's shift gears now and share those main success strategies that you can use that can help. So whether you're in the pre-diabetes stage, or maybe you're not even pre-diabetic, maybe you have normal A1C, how can we keep it that way? How can we prevent it from jumping into pre-diabetes? So whichever stage you are, this applies to everyone and everyone in the family, okay? We have to fight diabetes together, especially in the African American community, because the numbers have shown that we have an increased risk, whether it's because of our eating or because of our lifestyle. We definitely need to change that narrative and together as a family, just be healthier. And, the times where we used to say, well, I'm older now, I'm the one that has to eat healthy. The kids are fine, they don't have to. That's a myth at this point because a lot of kids are beginning to have diagnosis of prediabetes at a young age, teenagers. Teenagers are getting it. Younger, my youngest patient that I had in my practice at when I was at Grady, before I opened up my own direct primary care practice, was 9 years old, and it was type 2. It wasn't type 1. Type 1 is where you have as young as 5. This was type 2. It was insulin resistant. So let's talk about some key things that will certainly help. Certainly, first thing is knowing your numbers. If you don't know your numbers, you don't know what to do. You cannot manage if you cannot measure. So please, if you take anything away from this holistic perspective section today, is please know your numbers. What numbers are you at the moment? When last was it? If it was 2 years ago, you need an update. So first thing is know your numbers. And once you know your numbers, it's really to sit down and check. Just do a check. What are you doing? What does your plate look like? What does your activities look like? I know we all are in a very, very busy environment. There's just so much to do. The kids, the work, the spouse. It's just a lot. The profession. It's a lot. I get it. But again, I want to emphasize that health is wealth. And we have different types of wealth, but out of all of them, whether it's financial wealth, whether we're talking about time wealth, right? Freedom of time, as well as social. Those are the main wealth that we have. Health, if you don't have your health, you don't have any of those other things. You won't be able to socialize with people. You won't be able to make the money you want to make, and you don't even have freedom of time. So health is so important. So once you know your numbers, again, as I opened up, the session, I said it's not a death sentence. It's just a life sentence to be healthier and happier. So it's not about how long we live, but how well we live. I've had patients tell me, well, you're going to have to die of something. That's correct. We are going to pass, if we're going to pass at some point in time, but do we want to cause on unnecessary pain? We don't need to do that. So let's empower ourselves where we eat the proper foods and we live the proper life so that we can have less complications. That's the message here. So you know your numbers. Based on what your numbers are, what things are you doing that is contributing to it? So you have to be reflective. So you have to sit down, do an inventory of your movements. Are you somebody that is sedentary? Do you sit down quite a bit? Does your job require you to sit quite a bit? How many hours are you sitting? Do an inventory of how many hours are you sleeping. If we don't sleep adequately, unfortunately, we're increasing cortisol, stress hormones, and hormonal imbalance. We're eating a lot. So you need to do those checks. What's about your nutrition? What do you eat? Are you eating more processed foods? than whole foods. Whole foods, I mean foods that are in its whole state as much as possible. So you do that inventory. And once you do that inventory, then you can now proceed to the second step. So the first step, you can't go to the second step without doing the first step, which is you have to know your numbers, right? And again, just in case insurance is an issue, there's certainly places that can do it at an affordable cost. Places like direct primary care practices, you will be amazed the discounted cost for an A1C. An A1C in some places is like $3, and my practice is $4. There's several direct primary care all over the state, wherever it is you're hearing from. In case insurance is an issue, you can always get it at a decreased price. So you can always get that. So know your numbers. There's really no excuse not to know what your A1C is at this point. And if you have a family member that is, that you're concerned about, just tell them to check. We've saved several lives by just checking and knowing, all right? And you don't necessarily have to have symptoms to check, because we've had people where all they did was they were just peeing, and then they checked and they had an A1C that was high. And some people their blurred vision, they just thought they needed to see an eye doctor, and they checked the A1C, and their sugars were really high. So the second thing, I think I've bitten that over and over again about checking and then sitting down and reflecting. The second thing I want to share is the nutrition. So nutrition, so very important. As I said, the number one culprit of diabetes, unfortunately, is poor nutrition, what we're eating. So to give you an illustration, again, the pancreas is the house where the insulin is. And anytime we eat, there's going to be a burst of insulin to go and get rid of all that sugar that is in the bloodstream and take it into the organs that need it as energy. So the foods that we eat matter. You might have heard about low glycemic index. So that means foods that don't crush you completely. So meaning that you eat it and it doesn't convert right away to sugar. So you want to make sure that your plate, imagine your plate, right? Half of your plate, the first half, should always be veggies. And there's thousands of veggies that you can eat. So in order not to say, well, I don't like most veggies, I'm sure there's one or two that you can like and taste and enjoy by spicing it up, flavoring it. But you really want to prioritize half of your plate to be veggies, because it reduces the strain that you give when you just eat carbs alone. If you eat carbs alone and you don't have a covering of the veggie over it, you just have a release of sugar into the bloodstream. And then that's where the insulin is overwhelmed and fatigued and you cannot handle it. But if you have your carbs, which is a fist, and you have the covering of your veggie, then it takes longer to digest, right? Because veggies, the fiber, really helps to slow down the release. So imagine that picture. So you're not having high spikes of sugar, and your insulin is like, yes, this is easy. You know that button that says this is easy? Yes. It's going to be relaxed. It's going to be receptive. It's going to be, sensitive. But if you're eating just carbs, and unhealthy fats, that will definitely put a lot of strain on your insulin. So back to the nutrition. You want to prioritize what you're eating. I usually recommend to keep it simple and not complicated. Just have a serving of veggie with every meal. So hopefully you're eating 3 times. If you're eating twice, just see that you have, half of your plate's veggies, and you want to make sure that your protein and your carbs are just about the same size. And when you eat your carbs, try your best to eat whole grain. So you don't want white. So white bread, white rice, white pasta, all of that is sugar. More, it's just really sugar, because whenever you eat something white, they've taken out the fiber out of it. They stripped it. So it's stripped of its fiber, its protective layer. So when you eat that, and especially you're not even eating it with veggies, then again, it's back to the same situation. I enjoy eating rice a lot. So what I do is I just have my one scoop and then I pour my veggies in it and I mix it and it seems like I'm eating a whole lot of rice. And this is again because I want to prevent it. I always try to advocate for prevention over prescription, right? So I try to advocate for pills over pills. All right. And if you're already taking medications, we don't want to overload you with more and more meds because if you go to your doctor, some people complain that, well, my doctor only wants to just give me medicine all the time. They just keep adding and adding and adding. Well, they don't want you to get to dialysis. They don't want you to die of a heart attack. So that's why they give you the medicine. But really, the root cause of the problem is what you're eating. So if we can fix that, then you won't need to be on multiple medications, right? So you have a part to play with how what medications you're getting, if it's managed, and if you suddenly need help, please ask for the help. And if your doctor at the moment that you're seeing is not providing that additional information that is needed, then seek out one that would ensure that you have the knowledge and how to eat properly, when to eat, and the nourishing foods that would fill your body appropriately. So nutrition is so important. I cannot overemphasize that. 3 servings of veggie, 3 servings of fruit. I'm going to talk about fruit in my commonly asked questions because a lot of people always ask questions about, well, I can't eat fruits because I have diabetes. I'll talk about that later. But 3 servings of fruit, 3 servings of veggie, which is 3 servings of veggie. Try and make at least one of it leafy greens. Leafy greens, the darker it is because of the it's called the phytonutrients. So it's called the phytonutrients. What happens is that the greener it is, you have more of these chemicals, anti-inflammatory chemicals that really help the body. It really helps with antioxidants. It gets rid of the free radicals, and it's amazing. Lots of nutrients, lots of minerals. So 3 servings, one of it at least leafy greens, and then the others you can mix it up. 3 servings of fruits, at least one of it should be berries because the berries help with brain health. It helps with, all the good stuff. And other things that I would say with nutrition, there is a place called Blue Zone where they found people live over 100 years old, and they found that they were living healthy. So not only were they having long lifespans, they had health spans. They were really living healthy. And what they found is that they had a cup of beans a day. Yes, a cup of beans a day. So beans could be, from the legume group. It could be lentils. It could be chickpeas. It could be lima beans. There's so many categories in the legume, black eyed peas, just a cup of beans a day. And I know that one of the myths that I'm going to speak about later on is that people feel like, oh, it's gaseous, it makes me bloat, it makes me all of that. There are things that you can do. Certainly that would help to mitigate that. All right. Other things, nuts and seeds. Nuts and seeds are very good. Omega-3 fatty acid helps with brain health. And you just want a serving, right? So you don't want to have like the whole bag and just eat the whole bag because it's high in calorie. Okay. So I think I've emphasized the main things. You want to not drink your calories. A lot of all the drinks that we have is tons of sugar. And while we're talking about sugar, let me emphasize that for females, we're supposed to have less than 6 teaspoons of sugar. And at the moment, we're eating close to 17 teaspoons. So you tell me, what do you think it's going to do to your pancreas? What do you think it's going to do to your insulin? When your insulin is called upon, when you've had like a soda can, you have like that soda, maybe 3, just one of it has about 9 teaspoons. So you have 3 of that. Imagine your insulin. Of course, it's going to be overwhelmed. So we really don't want to drink our calories. That's so important that we should pay attention. For men, it's 9 teaspoons or less. And unfortunately, there's sugar in everything. So we need to be very attentive. We need to be label readers. We have to look at it and see how much sugar is in this thing. If it is high, it might not be worth it. Just put it back. All right. You don't want later down the line that you're going to have to be spending prescriptions, right, to get yourself medication every month after month. So that is about nutrition. I think I've covered it, basic things about nutrition. First one is know your numbers, right? do your mindset work, see what you're doing, see what can be tweaked. 2, nutrition, just really nail that in. Because there's a lot, Rome wasn't built in a day. Just figure out one thing that you want to work on and how you're going to work on it. And I would say create a SMART goal around it. SMART means SMART goal, be smart about it. So S would be very specific. So for instance, I would say, I'm going to make sure I eat at least 1 serving of beans a day. That's what so I'm not just going to say, oh, I'm going to start eating healthy. I've listened to Dr. Babs on the holistic perspective. I'm going to make sure I try and do better. I want to get off this medicine and I know I can't. I'm just going to eat healthy. That is good, but it's not a SMART goal. So what you should create though will be, I'm going to eat 1 serving of beans a day. And I like chickpeas. Maybe I'll mix it up, but at least I'll start with 1 serving of beans. And so that's specific. Then you're going to measure it, right? Measure it. How many days a week are you going to do that? Maybe 3-4 days a week. I will make sure. I can't promise I'll do 7, but I can aim for 4 or 5 days a week. All right. And then the A part of it is attainable. How are you going to make that happen? It's not going to happen if you don't buy it into your house, right? It's not going to happen. So you have to grocery shop, put it on your grocery list, make sure you buy it. If you want to do a variety, make sure you have it. If you're going to cook it over the weekend, like I make mine on Sundays. I make a big pot in the pressure cooker, either myself or my husband. We put it, and we're still trying to get our kids to enjoy eating beans. I'm telling my son that he's our last hope of a child being taller than his parents. So I tell him he should eat beans, at least 1 serving a day. So I'm hoping that he's going to do it, but I enjoy eating beans. And then I was saying that I can tell things that we can do that reduces the gas is you can soak it. A lot of people, when you soak it overnight, it breaks down all the, all the gas and the things that they say really makes people feel bloated. Soak it overnight and then cook. That usually helps. All right. So that's your A. Your R is relevant. How is it relevant in your SMART goals? How is it relevant? How is that going to help you? Well, it's going to help you because there's studies that have shown that at least 1 serving of beans a day really does help to increase your longevity, right? So there's studies behind it. I want to live long. I want to be able to play with my grandkids. I want to look good. I want to feel good. I want to be able to get up. I don't want to be tired and fatigued. It has to be relevant. It has to make sense. There has to be a strong why attached to it. And then T is time bound. How long are you going to do this for? So even if you're just going to say you're doing it for a week, at least start there, right? So you always want to make sure that your goals are SMART. So let's go to the third key success strategy that I always emphasize: movement, 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 movement. I cannot say it enough. Movement is the one prescription that if it could be written and handed to all of us and we do it, it would really save all of us. Nutrition is the foundation, yes, but movement is so underrated. We do not move enough. We don't move enough. And not moving is actually known to be, what do you call it now? The new smoking. So not moving is known as the new smoking. And I'm using style to get up because I've been sitting down for a minute. So just getting up alone, doing what I'm just doing right now, actually gets your muscle awake. It actually needs energy to move. So movement is so important. Now, what we find and what is shown is that, of course, your movement, whenever you move, it releases lots of chemicals. It needs energy to stay alive and do the activities. It burns calories, right? And especially if you do strength training, it also develops muscle. It helps to maintain our posture. So all of that is so important. But most important of all, with people trying to prevent diabetes or even to deprescribe, if that is what your goals are, or even reverse, is that you want to move at least a minimum of, they call it moderate exercise, 5 days. If you can do at least 30 minutes 5 days a week, will give you about 150 minutes. And then you want to do 2 to 3 days of strength training. So the question I'm asking you today is that, are you doing any of these at the moment? And if you're not, then you might want to, because that's really going to help your insulin to be very sensitive, to be receptive to managing whatever you eat. So And if you do have diabetes, after your heaviest meal, whether that's dinner, just move, move, move. If you can do a 15 minutes movement, 20 minutes, whichever is your heaviest meal, it really will help to circulate that sugar appropriately so that you're not having the sugar storing into your body, your stomach, which unfortunately can cause visceral fat levels, and that encroaches against your organs, and that is not healthy. So I think I've pretty much covered the three things that I always emphasize, but there are other things. Other things would be definitely have your team. You are so this is you here, and then you have everybody around you. So it's a community, right? So don't fight it alone. Have your community with you. You are the main person in that team, but you want to have your physician, right? You want to have your dietitian. You want to have your exercise. If you need an exercise person, you could have a team. One person could be all these things, but you want to have a team effort. You definitely need your family, your friends, your coworkers, just anybody that will help support you on this journey, because no man is an island. So those are other accessory things to the care of diabetes. But I think it's so important that if you need additional information, please reach out. The American Diabetes Association, they have tons of resources, tons of recipes that you can adapt, tons of challenges. This month, you might not be aware, but there's a 34-mile challenge, just encouraging people to get up and move. And even in the cold weather, they say there's no such thing as a bad weather, there's just bad clothing. So movement, even if you don't want to face the cold weather. I have a friend who has been walking every day since November 1st. I admire her. I walked with her on Saturday. It was so cold. I had my hat and everything. But again, she really wanted to encourage, she's really fighting for diabetes because she lost her husband to the complications of diabetes. So she's made it her life mission to just talk to people about diabetes and make sure that they're well aware of diabetes. So I really hope that this has been helpful. Some of the myths that I want to talk about, I think I've already mentioned some of them, but let me mention the one about fruit. So fruit comes up quite a bit. People say, oh, I read somewhere that I should not eat fruits because it has sugar and it can spike up my diabetes. So there's no science behind that. Fruit does have sugar, but guess what? It's natural sugar. It's fructose, natural sugar, and the body receives it different from the way it receives artificial sugar. So the engineered sugar, they're two different types of sugar. So you can have fruits because, again, remember, I talked about fiber. Fiber is a protective layer. So anytime you eat fruit, it has fiber. It helps to protect and slowly disperse the sugar into the bloodstream. But more than that, yes, there are different types of fruits. Some have a higher glycemic index than others. When you're in the healing stage, you can limit the types of fruits. I always say portion is key. So whatever it is that you're doing, portion is key. But I say it's better to eat the fruit than to eat the cookie. If you're a sweet tooth like me, I will take eating the fruit any day to a cookie, because calories, I mean, a small cookie is almost 350 calories. Meanwhile, a handful, look at my beautiful apple here. I'm about to eat this apple. This is a Gala apple, and it's about 50 calories. But then, do you know all the fiber that is in here? I mean, they say an apple a day keeps the doctor away. So it's really, it has a lot of fiber. It has lots of nutrients, vitamin C, just name it. You don't get that with cookie and all the other ones, right? So please eat your fruit, eat portion control. Make sure that at least one serving of it is berries, any form of berries, right? And I know berries can be expensive, and you have to look and see which one is the clean or dirty, if you have to get it organic or unorganic. There are definitely ways, if you can't afford the very expensive organic ones, then there are ways to clean the ones that are not organic. They say apple cider vinegar with some baking soda, soak, and there are ways around it. But the important thing is just do your best, your very best, to make sure that your body is eating foods that are nourishing, that would encourage your insulin to work a whole lot better. So when you're making smoothie, this is another myth that people say that, oh, I want to be healthy, I want to make a smoothie. And then when you ask them what they put in their smoothie, it's just fruit, nothing else. Well, that is doesn't have a covering. It needs to have a balanced covering. So a smoothie will be a healthy, I always say your base should be your veggie, right? So your veggie could be a cup of spinach, a cup of kale, arugula, celery, whatever veggie, one veggie to two fruits, right? And it will be a cup, so a half a cup, whatever is needed. And then always make sure that you have your protein and your healthy fats. Your seeds could be considered healthy fats. So pumpkin seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds. So they're healthy ways of, and I'll make sure that I put a slide when later on so that you can always reference back the way to have smoothies. So there's lots of conversation here. I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that this has been useful. Please share with anyone that can find this helpful. Again, it's not a death sentence. It's just a way for us to live. It's a life sentence for us to live healthy and happier. And so as we come to a wrap, we're closing out for the season. We'll return in January, where we get to say Happy New Year to each other. Cheers to a healthier New Year. And I want you to please just know that you deserve to live at your finest, and certainly because you're worth it. We want you to be whole, vibrant, and healthy. And we want you to at least try one thing. Let us know how, what you've done and how it's made a difference. But I don't want to leave without leaving this nugget that I always like to share. And I saw this online. I don't know who said it, but it says that diabetes is a daily battle. So let me say that again. So diabetes is a daily battle. But each day I become stronger and more resilient. Having diabetes doesn't mean you are limited. It just means that you're capable of overcoming any challenge. And I think that's so beautifully said. So if your journey at the moment is you're trying to prevent it, excellent. If you're in the pre-diabetes, it can be reversed, as tons of studies have shown that. And even if it's full-blown diabetes, I've had a patient that has gone from 12 all the way to normal because the body was just in the environment that it needed to survive, and it's capable of healing itself. So thank you very much for listening. I truly appreciate you all. Until next year, wish you happy holidays. Take care and God bless.